recovery. Let's start with a thank you to Eagle Peak Middle School for hosting this meeting. Thank you. And a special thanks to my partner and co-host tonight, Senator Mike McGuire, the hardest working guy in Northern California. He has been, I want you to know that Senator McGuire has been present and fully engaged, he and his entire team, since the first hours of this terrible, tragic fire. In fact, I was here with him on the ground 2 days after. Pocket fires were still burning out off Tom Key Road as we walked through to take stock of the damage. And we promised at that time that we would be with this community for the long haul. That's kind of what tonight is all about, keeping that promise, making sure that you know that your government representatives at every level, the county, state, and federal, are not going to leave you as you continue to recover from this tragedy. They are doing incredible work, and I want to, at this point, thank them, because you're going to hear from many of them tonight. But in this room are folks from your county government, folks from Cal OES and other state agencies, folks from FEMA, the Army Corps of Engineers, HUD, folks that you may not ever meet, but you need to know that they're working really hard to help this community get back on its feet. And I'm very grateful for their partnership as part of this team. Last, and certainly not least, I want to thank all of you whose lives have been impacted and disrupted by this terrible tragedy. I want to thank you for your courage, for your patience, for your resilience. We know how horrific this fire was. Lives were lost and disrupted. Homes and properties were destroyed and damaged. Many of us saw it firsthand, but we can't really understand what it was like that night in those terrible hours as the fire was raging through. Tonight we're going to hear updates on the recovery process. And we also want to hear from you. We want to answer your questions. We want to hear what you think has gone well and what you think is still needing our attention. I have so many takeaways from this experience as your congressman. One of those is a new appreciation for our emergency response system. It was remarkable for me to be here as the fairgrounds over on State Street transformed into this hub of activity with firefighters swarming in from all over the country, equipment and tents popping up. The emergency response and mutual aid system was really something to behold, and I know all of you are grateful for that. The other particularly impressive thing for me was the Good Samaritan aspect of our response. It's not a government program, but it was remarkable for me to see neighbors helping neighbors, friends helping friends. That's just what a great community does in a crisis, and this community did that in a very big way. And then the other impressive piece of this, one of many impressive pieces, was the philanthropy and the volunteer response in the aftermath of this tragedy. You'll probably hear some of the numbers from others tonight, but the response from the North Bay Fire Relief Fund and other philanthropic funds was incredible, record-breaking. The number of volunteers that stepped forward and contacted the Red Cross and others and wanted to help was unbelievable. That's just what a great community this is, and I'm really proud of that aspect of the way the community has come through. Now, as your member of Congress, one of the most important things my staff and I have been focused on is making sure at the federal level we are adequately funding disaster relief. And as you know, as bad as this fire was in Mendocino County, it's one of many terrible disasters that our state and our country have had to deal with. So we started out in October back in Washington with a $36.5 billion supplemental disaster appropriation. We knew then that wasn't going to be nearly enough because we'd had the hurricanes in the Gulf Coast, and Florida, and Puerto Rico. The disasters have just continued to happen. And then, of course, we had terrible fires here in California once again in December. So I'm happy to report that on February 9th, Congress passed and the President signed a budget bill that included $89 billion in disaster relief that specifically includes fire needs here in California. That's very important. Just as important is the fact that it includes a higher matching level of 90% instead of the normal 75% that would apply for debris removal. That matching level is a big deal for our communities as they struggle to rebuild. We know the work isn't done. We know that there are a lot of lessons that need to be learned. Even as we recover and rebuild, we need to be thinking of how to be better prepared for the next natural disaster. And that'll be part of our conversation tonight, I hope, as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. I'm very grateful that you've joined us. And I'm going to hand off at this point to my terrific partner in the state legislature, your state Senator Mike McGuire.
Well, good evening. Thank you all for coming out, particularly after a long week. I'd like to be able to say thank you to Congressman Huffman. Since day one, he has been active and engaged in delivering for Mendocino and Sonoma counties. We are so grateful to be able to have him in Washington, D.C. fighting for us every day. And we're going to give him a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. Congressman Huff and I would also like to be able to also recognize the Board of Supervisors who have been working 24/7 to make sure that residents are getting the services that they need. Thank you so much. We're going to hear from the Board of Supervisors chair here in just a bit. I want to say thank you to Carmel Angelo, our incredible county administrator who is here tonight. We want to say a special thank you to the Office of Emergency Services. Director Garaducci is here. So grateful for Mr. Garaducci and his hard work. He has spent a lot of time on the North Coast, in the Valley Fire in Lake County, Clayton Fire last year in Lake County, and of course with the Redwood Complex in the North Bay Firestorm. Special thanks as well to the school district who has been hosting us time and time again, and the Redwood Valley Water District who has been so focused on the rebuild there in right here in Redwood Valley. The Army Corps of Engineers who have been working overtime as well. And of course we want to say thank you to the Redwood Valley Cal Pella Fire Department. Let's give them a round of applause because they are pretty good. As the Congressman had said from the beginning, we have been committed to Mendocino's recovery and rebuild. Through the North Bay Fire Relief Fund, what we saw is over $1 million come in to ensure that those who lost a home or face economic hardship all received immediate financial assistance from the relief fund. There will be new wildfire turnouts provided to the Redwood Valley Cal Pella Fire Department here in the weeks to come. As well as we're working with the school district. I want to say thank you so much to our superintendent to be able to host holiday parties for each of the students who lost their home in this devastating blaze as well. And I want to say thank you to Redwood Credit Union and the Press Democrat for their fantastic work on that. Absolutely. And the Congressman's been very modest. He has been fighting to make sure that we are able to open with the County of Mendocino Cayenne Campground. And thanks to his hard work, they actually broke ground on the Cayenne Campground today so that we have long-term temporary housing for Redwood Valley and Mendocino County families. And I want to say thank you to the Congressman, to the County of Mendocino, the Office of Emergency Services, the Army Corps, and FEMA for making sure that that became a reality today. Let's give them a round of applause. And our administrator from FEMA has been busy. He just coming back from Guam. So we're grateful to have you here in this beautiful warm weather right now. So another really significant focus that we have are 189 homes in Redwood Valley. So right now there are going to be about 189 homes that were destroyed by the fire that currently can't be rebuilt because we need a larger main line in Redwood Valley. Currently it's at 3 inches. We need to be able to build it to 6 inches to be able to conform with both state and federal law and fire sprinkler fire suppression. We have been working with the Congressman's office, Assemblymember Wood's office, the county, and OES, and FEMA to drive about $8 to $9 million that we're going to need to be able to put laterals in, new laterals, as well as a new main line. And we had a good breakthrough this week. We think we have found a funding source that will cover the cost of that construction for the system, so that we're going to be able to get those 189 homes rebuilt, which is absolutely critical to the recovery of this county. And it is because of the unified front of the Congressman's office, the Senator Wood's office, the county, OES, and FEMA, as well as Housing Community Development, that we're going to be able to get that moved. And a special thank you to Carmel Angelo, who brings the whip to every meeting. So watch out. And just want to say thank you so much for all of the work. And I'll just end it here and then turn it over to Board of Supervisors Chair. There are a lot of words that were given to all of you during the peak of the fire. And there was a promise made that we are not going to turn our back on Mendocino County, and that we are committed to be able to rebuild our community stronger than ever. And I do believe we are going to be able to deliver on that promise. But what I will say is there is going to be challenges ahead. And I cannot imagine the struggle that many of you have gone through. My mother and father-in-law lost their home 3 years ago to a house fire. There is nothing more devastating in one's life than losing a home. I want to say thank you for your patience with all of us, and we are committed to continue to work with you here in the months to come. Without further ado, I'd like to better turn it over to the Board of Supervisors Chair, Mr. Dan Hamper.
Thank you, Senator McGuire. I'm Carmel Angelo, Mendocino County CEO. And I just wanted to say that, since October 8th, before October 8th, Mendocino County, our services were here for you 7 days a week. After October 8th, our services have been here for you. And Mendocino County will be here with you and for you for the duration. At this time, I get to introduce the chair of our board, Supervisor Dan Hamburg.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say that I'm standing in for your supervisor, Carrie Brown, who had to be in Sacramento on business this evening. And I know you know that she would be here if she could. She was at the Cayenne campground this afternoon with a shovel in her hand, turning over that first shovel of dirt on that new project at Lake Mendocino that Senator McGuire mentioned. And I, of course, want to thank Senator McGuire, Congressman Huffman, the FEMA Director, Bob Fenton, Cali OES Director, Mark Ghilarducci, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, particularly Colonel McFadden. We've had such amazing coordination and cooperation from these agencies, and they really are the reason that we've made the progress we've made. As previous speakers have said, there is a lot left to do, but we are on the way. I was on a tour today in Redwood Valley. I hadn't been out there for about a month. I was impressed to see that some things are improving. Partly it's that things are a little bit green, so they look a little bit better. But in general, I just see that people are moving trailers and RVs onto their property, reclaiming their property, and slowly things are starting to get better. I also want to thank the Redwood Valley MAC, which has been a really important player in this recovery effort. But mainly, it's about you. It's about the fire survivors who are our neighbors. It's about your strength and your vigilance and your belief that you can rebuild your lives and rebuild your homes here in Mendocino County, the place that all of us call our home. And as Carmel said, we, the county, along with all these agencies and other elected officials, are here to do everything they can to be of assistance. The assistance includes working with our planning and building department. I know sometimes that seems like a frustrating exercise. We have our chief building official here tonight who's going to be talking a little bit about that process. I know it must seem really frustrating sometimes dealing with the county bureaucracy. I want you to know, though, that the Board of Supervisors wants to do everything possible to smooth that and make that as user-friendly as it possibly can be. Finally, I just want to thank all of you again for being here this evening and leave you with the note that Mendocino County will survive this disaster, and we will survive it together as a community. Thank you. And, our next speaker is Superintendent of Ukiah Unified School District, Deb Cuban.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I have been so grateful for the work of our elected officials, especially Senator McGuire. He has wrapped himself around our kids and families, and I'm forever grateful to you and your staff. And I just wanted to say welcome. We're so happy to host you, give you just a little word or two about what we're doing with our students in Ukiah Unified who lost their homes. We are monitoring them super closely. I just personally reviewed all of their grades, attendance, behavior, to see if there are any kids who need extra support. So we're here for you, we're here for the community, we are certainly here for our kids. And if we can do anything, if you have kids in our system, grandkids in our system, neighbors, and you see that they need help, let us know. We have lots of services and support for them. So we're here for you, and I'm going to turn it over to our awesome principal of Eagle Peak.
Thank you, Deb. And I just want to add on to that really quickly. For some kids, the devastation of the fire hits months and months later. Some kids can be fine for a few months and, hey, I'm playing basketball. Basketball's great. I'm doing that. And then basketball's over, and then go back to thinking about house that's gone. And it just hits them much later. It can hit them in summer. So we're working with a lot of children who are going through the grieving process now, who are seemingly fine right off the bat, and so on. So once again, please refer to us families and children in need. There's two parts to recovery. There's the physical rebuilding of homes. There's also heart and head. And our children have suffered, and there's that emotional rebuilding that has to happen. So give us a call. We're easy to find. We have tons of resources to help our children in our Ukiah, Road Valley, and Calpella schools. Thank you. Turning it over now to OES, Senator.
So this time, what we'd like to be able to do is take a deep dive into all issues in regards to housing. We'd like to be able to do a deep dive into issues related to debris removal, and to be able to do a deep dive into the Cayenne campground. And we'd like to be able to have the director of OES, our regional administrator from FEMA, as well as the colonel to please come forward. Again, I'll just mention this quickly. Mark Garaducci has been a true hero. He is available 24/7. He is one of the hardest working folks here in the state of California, and he delivers. And he also is no BS, and he always tries to get the yes. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Mark, thank you to Mr. Fenton, who has been phenomenal, and in these days of intense partisanship, he's been able to cut through all issues and be able to deliver. And I just want to say thank you so much, as well as to the colonel, who is leading the largest debris cleanup operation in this state's history. So without further ado, I'd like to better turn it over to the director, the regional administrator, as well as the colonel. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thanks, Senator McGuire. Nice words, and I appreciate it. I know we all appreciate it, but to have a representative like Senator McGuire is unique, and I deal with a lot of legislators, none like Senator McGuire. He's really something special. And also Congressman Hub, who literally has been working night and day in Washington, and it is paying off on a number of the things that we're going to talk about today. Let me just take a few minutes and just sort of give you a few numbers and give you a little better understanding of what the last year has really looked like. You often hear every day in the news about discourse and people not getting along and problems between levels of government. This person hates that person. None of that is existing here. Local, state, and federal, our elected leaders, our government officials, and all of you working together in one group to reach a set of objectives. And it is showing. It is showing in the way and in the speed at which we are adjudicating and addressing all of the issues that have come forth. And Senator's right. My two colleagues behind me, Bob Fenn from FEMA and Colonel McFadden from the Corps, something comes up, we get to it fast. If the county administrative officer calls, we work together to address the issue. And that has been the mainstay, and will continue to be the mainstay, all the way through the recovery, through the rebuilding process, and well into the future. I think it's important to note, though, which is kind of phenomenal to think about, that since October the 8th, in roughly a 4-month period, between Mendocino County and San Diego, we lost, as a state, over 11,000 homes and businesses due to disasters. A phenomenal impact. At the same time, FEMA and OES were managing 3 catastrophic events happening simultaneously in California. And we knew that the only way we could effectively do this as a team, as a partnership, is engaging everybody, the community, all of our elected local, state, and federal leaders. There's been a lot of great effort that's been made, and you're going to hear more about the debris operation from Colonel McFadden. But that in itself has been an unprecedented effort. Between Butte, Nevada, Huber, Placer, Lake, Napa, Mendocino, and Sonoma, in that first round, we lost almost 8,900 homes. And it required this massive debris operation in all different parts of the state. In the portion of Mendocino, Lake, Napa, and Sonoma, we turned to our partnership with FEMA to ask for support from the Army Corps of Engineers. And they came in a big way to help us deal with this very complicated situation. The senator was right. It's the largest debris operation we've seen in California since the 1906 earthquake. And you kind of put that into context. Here in Mendocino, Colonel McFadden will deep dive into this, but really, there just have 51 parcels roughly that remain that still need to be cleared. Out of the 318 parcels that were identified, most of those parcels have now been cleared. And of that, 202 have been returned back to the county, which means that they can be returned back to you, and we can begin that rebuilding process. Overall, so far, close to 95,000 tons of debris have been removed from this county, which is a phenomenal amount of debris. But we know that there's still a lot left to do, and we're going to continue to do that. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the ways that we're going to, and the state legislature and the governor have acted in ensuring that the county itself is resilient through this process, because it's important to have a strong county to ensure that all of you effectively can rebuild in a positive way. So, as some of you may know, the governor did release his proposed budget for 2018 and 2019 fiscal year, and the budget did include close to $24 million in general fund to backfill property tax revenue losses that cities and counties and special districts would possibly incur as a result of the losses of all the homes. We wanted to make sure that the counties did not get into a financial problem. As well, that will continue to be adjusted as we know more as the May revised budget comes around the springtime. In addition, with regards to the schools, because as you know, schools are funded through ADA or attendance by students, and there are many students that were out of school for a long period of time. We work with the Department of Education and the Department of Finance, and the funding losses for the schools will be backfilled through the Prop 98 school funding formula to ensure that the schools have no losses as we move forward, and that's going to be very important. As Congressman Huffman talked about, the California congressional delegation came together. They came together in a way that we have not seen come together since 1993, where all of the congressional delegation came together and signed a unified letter in a one team, one fight effort to send to Congress a list of recommendations for special appropriation for the disasters we had out here in California. And that was powerful. It was powerful. And because of the work of Congressman Huffman, Congressman Thompson, and the California congressional delegation, that appropriation was approved. And that allowed close to $5 billion in funding to be made available to California to address issues that will come directly back down to the county. Programs that you directly will benefit from. Things like money to housing and urban development and community block grants and Department of Education programs, etc., which the various agencies here can talk about. But very important, and we as a state and we as a local government could not have done that without the great work of the congressional delegation and Congressman Huffman is a great partner. A little bit about housing. Housing has been a priority for both OES and FEMA, and I know Bob's going to talk a little bit more about this, but right from the get-go. Even before the fires were out, we were already in the process of building the recovery plan of how we were going to be able to come in and address this, and housing has always been problematic. There's only so much housing to go around, and there's only limited spaces. And so we work very closely in coordination with the county, with our housing agencies at the state and federal level, and with FEMA to be able to develop some strategies. And we put together a state housing task force. At the state level, that housing task force was led by Tina Curry, who's here, Deputy Director from OES, and a gentleman by the name of Ryan Burris from FEMA. And together, they work very closely with the county to be able to identify short, medium, and long-term objectives. As you know, part of that was putting in sort of interim housing solutions, sheltering solutions, which are done either by travel trailers or by fifth wheels, and in some cases direct leases, which Bob will talk about in a little bit. But to date, we've really housed approximately 80% of those who qualify for FEMA housing assistance, and the other 20% are going through the private site placements and through some of the requirements that they're working on now. Long term, the great work of your outstanding county administrator, who does keep us focused, have been working with us on trying to identify and work with programs such as community development block grants and hazard mitigation grants to address issues associated with long-term housing, including workforce, possible workforce shortages, developing workforce capability, and ensuring we have enough capability to build those homes back when the time comes. And as part of that, we've developed some working groups with the State Department of Labor, the State Contractors Licensing Board, industry trade associations, and other labor leaders, as well as our partners at the federal level, to begin that process of addressing everything from traditional apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeship programs and training programs targeted to veterans, conservation corps, and other types of groups. And we'll remain working very closely with the county to be able to make sure that those programs that are available for Mendocino County will get implemented. Now let me just close my part out by talking a little about the kayak campground. I know that's important. I think, you know, Bob and Tina and the team were out digging the hole today. They kicked it off, which was fantastic. That's what I call a labor of love because, you know, there's a lot of pieces that have to come together to ensure that happens. We didn't wait, though. The interim solution was the Redwood Empire Fairgrounds, or a direct lease, or working on someone's private land. But the longer term is getting these construction of the 29 pads at the kayak campground, which is scheduled to begin, you know, on the 22nd. And the trenching and excavation, I think, is planning on beginning on the 26th. There is a general contractor that's been selected. It's a local company, Welletti Construction. Maybe some of you know that group. And we're excited about the fact that that program will be accelerated, and we'll try to get that in place and finished off here within the next month or so. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my great partner and colleague. I'm going to just say publicly that we're truly blessed to have such a phenomenal partner with Bob Fenton at FEMA. He is a get the yes kind of guy as well, can do, and it's just been great to be able to work with him. So let me introduce Bob Fenton.
Thanks for having me here today and being able to come here and talk to you. As Mark said, my name is Bob Fenton. I'm the FEMA Region Administrator, and I have responsibility for not only California, but Arizona, Nevada, and the whole Pacific. So as Senator McGuire said, my first time that I've traveled outside of California since the fire's begun was just this last week to Guam, which I picked the best place I could go because it's 20 hours each way on a plane. So it's been a rather long week for me, but glad to be up here today with you and talking about recovery because the California fires, both north and south, have been very personal to my region. We live in the Bay Area. Many of the people that work in my office have family members that have been impacted from these fires. So my job is to do everything I can with my authorities, my resources to help you recover. Let me just say that you have a tremendous group around you that is helping you. Carmel, the CEO, and the county supervisors here, and Senator McGuire, Congressman Huffman are great advocates for you, and have reached out to both me and Mark anytime that that you have run into issues or things that we could do, and made us aware of those, and that's helpful because there's a lot of times that there's resources I can provide, and just need to know what those are and what the stumbling blocks are and how to work through those. As you can see, I'm a guy with big shoulders, and I don't mind going through a wall or two if it takes that to get there. But I want to make sure we're doing that as effectively as you can to support you. Ultimately, my job is to support the priorities and objectives of the local government. All events are local. They start local and local. So as those objectives and priorities are established, I'm bringing my programs, resources, authorities, and funding to help do that. Mark talked about a lot of the specifics, but I'm just going to cover 4 general areas that we're helping out at. And folks that, one is debris removal, which Colonel McFadden will talk about the progress. But I think one of the big things that happened in the recent legislation that Congressman Huffman helped pass was moving the cost share. Traditionally, everything I fund is 75% federal, 25% state and local, and the state of California, you should know, takes 75% of that 25%, so about 6.25% end up going to local government. One of the things that the Congressman did is, along with other members of the California delegation, has got the cost share changed to 90-10, which is a big benefit, and all the work the Corps is doing will be more cost shared and provided by FEMA, the cost in order to do that. The second program that I bring is individual assistance, helping those that have been impacted by these events, either helping them temporarily with renting a temporary rental property, providing direct housing. Mark talked about the Cayenne and talked a little bit about the Redwood Empire Fairgrounds. So if there's not rental space available, we look to go ahead and establish housing, either through travel trailers, mobile homes, or refurbishing existing apartments and those kind of things, or direct leasing apartments. And so we've put a number of people from Mendocino up in a number of various different units in order to help them recover from these events. What I would say is our individual assistance registration program is ended. However, it's a system that we continue to work over a period of time and do case management. And if you still have issues and you register for that program, I have a number of people over here on the side from FEMA today that can help you with your case and simply get your case number. And if you have a question or an issue about that program, why didn't I get this? How can I get this? I didn't have this information. This has come in later. They can go ahead and help you with that on a personal basis and be glad to do it. They have access to your file and your system through the computers they brought today. Our third program is our public assistance program, and one of the things we'll do is help repair, replace, upgrade any public infrastructure damage from this storm, from these fires. So, and we're working, as you heard, with key entities within your community, to include the water district and others, to make sure that not only do we replace the infrastructure, but when opportunity, make it more resilient and protect it from the next event. And then finally, our fourth program is called hazard mitigation. We have some representatives here from our hazard mitigation department. And one of the things we try to do is educate to make sure that as we rebuild, we make things more resilient. And that may be how you rebuild your house to how we rebuild the infrastructure. And some of the projects there we're looking at is how to help with improving the infrastructure to meet the requirements of not only today, but of the future in this community, to include the water system and other things that you may need, and how to prevent events like this from happening in the future. So as we start looking at long-term recovery, the mitigation program will come into play, and again, there's sufficient funding in there to help fund a number of these projects from this event. I thank you for the time here today. I'll be around to answer questions. Let me turn it over to Colonel McFadden to specifically talk about the debris.
First, thank you to Senator McGuire for having us here tonight. And most of all, thank you to all of you for having us here tonight. And thank you for your patience. I know this has been an ongoing effort, and I've heard a lot of us talk, and our goal is to make sure our words are followed with the right action. It's a pleasure for me to be standing. It's my honor to be here in front of you to provide you an update. Just to kind of put a little bit of kind of scope of what we've been dealing with. Achieving debris removal on more than 80% of the eligible properties and moving more than 1.5 million tons of debris across Lake, Mendocino, and Napa and Sonoma counties is no small feat. In just 112 days, and really can't do it without it being a whole community effort. In Mendocino County alone, more than 280 properties have been cleared of roughly 95,000 tons of debris. And we were able to notify the county that there are 202 parcels ready to conduct rebuilding. Now, I want you to take away from me tonight, we're not done, okay? And that's the most important takeaway. We currently have 75 parcels that are going through a we're calling the final preparation phase. And what that means is you'll see car removal ongoing, you'll see erosion control measures, you'll see soil sampling, and you'll see final quality control checks before it's turned back over to the county, and the county is notified for rebuilding. We are working hand in hand with the county, making sure that we understand that we understand all of the parcels that are remaining out there to complete debris removal on, and to ensure that no parcel is left behind. We also have issue resolution ongoing. We have a regular meeting that's coordinated between the state, FEMA, as well as the county. And we have heard from many of you that your debris removal, while it may be complete, there may still be issues. We're also working side by side with the county to resolve these issues. And if you feel like we have been non-responsive or you still have issues, this is where we need your help. And so we ask you, if you see something, say something. I have a team of professionals here tonight, the white shirts out in the lobby. I also have my officer who's in charge of issue resolution. He's probably one of the most well-known individuals across all 4 counties. He is here tonight, and you already know his name, so I won't mention it. And so I asked that you, if you do have an issue, spend a little time with our team out in the lobby today so we can capture your contact information, capture your issue, and we can put the right level of fidelity on the issues that you're having. Our call center is still remaining open 7 days a week, but we're working 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. And that is our gateway to the issue resolution process if we can't get to you tonight. We see this as the first step of reformation, and the Corps is committed as part of this whole community effort and as one team to the rapid restoration and rebuilding effort in Mendocino County. As we mentioned earlier, when we broke ground at a Cayenne campground, it takes a community to rebuild a community. And thank you for having us here tonight.
Thank you, folks, and they will be available for questions. Speaking of which, we have these cards circulating. You've probably figured it out by now, but that's the way we'd like you to submit your questions. So just raise your hand if you'd like to get a card, and then when you've filled it out, just hold it up, and we will make sure that your questions get answered. At this point, we're going to hear from some officials from the Redwood Valley Water District, General Manager Tamara Alaniz and Chief Building Official Mike Oliphant.
Thank you, Congressman Huffman. My name is Tamara Alaniz. I'm your new General Manager for the Redwood Valley County Water District. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about some of the efforts that we've undertaken and some of the partnerships that we're being involved in to help you rebuild and help the community repair. I want to thank State Senator McGuire. He has tirelessly helped our district, and he has tirelessly helped the community, and I can't begin to even say how he has helped us, as well as the county. Carmel Angelo and Tammy Moss Chandler and Steve Dunnacliff have been incredibly supportive of us in our efforts to continue to provide safe, reliable water to our remaining customers, to make repairs on some of the damages that we incurred on our distribution system, and then also to see what are those things that we need to do in the future and today to ensure that you can rebuild and that you can rebuild in accordance with current codes and standards. The loss of the pumping station on Tom Kai was infrastructure loss to the district that we have been able to temporarily repair and provide a bypass that does provide the same pressure to the areas that the Tom Kai pumping station originally provided, and we continue to work on permanently repairing and replacing that lost infrastructure. We also are working with the county and FEMA and OES on many of the types of applications that you've heard about tonight, including public assistance where appropriate and hazard mitigation for future resiliency to the community. One of the things that hasn't really been mentioned tonight, I think that I would just also like to bring up is we're trying to find opportunities to also install additional fire hydrants. And that's something that resiliency-wise, we're going to try to do as a district and work with other funding providers to help update our system to be able to provide fire mitigation in the future, including the fire mitigation that could potentially happen in your own home. And you'll hear more tonight from Mike from the county on fire sprinklers and some of the things that new homes are going to be required to do that your old homes may not have had. So as a district, our infrastructure obviously has been built for those homes that existed, and we want to make sure that your new homes can be accommodated with the pressure and the water supply that you need. We have a lot of challenges in our district. I won't go into all of those tonight. I think many of you probably know those and have lived them. I encourage you to reach out to me. We have consolidated our water district offices into 151 laws down in Ukiah, and we're all working together to consolidate our water districts to provide a more reliable water supply for the region, and especially for this community. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions about rebuilding that we can help you with, or about your water service connection that you need answered. Finally, I just want to talk to you a little bit about a lot of the progress that we've made on finding funding sources and partnerships throughout the state and federal community that are going to help us do all these things I just talked about. You know, updating our infrastructure and our main lines is a really important part to a full rebuild, and that's extremely expensive, and it would be difficult for us to do on our own in a disadvantaged community and with a small district. And so the community has been so fortunate to work with Housing and Community Development on the state level, and the Congressman and State Senator McGuire have mentioned some other partnerships that are really providing a lot of potential opportunities in the future for funding, and a lot of potential opportunities to help us help you rebuild. So again, thank you for coming out tonight, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions about your water service connection or rebuilding. And now I will pass the mic to Mike Oliphant.
Thank you, Tamara. Like she said, my name's Mike Oliphant. I'm the building official for Mendocino County, and I thank you all for being here this evening. I have 3 topics I'd like to discuss, and all the forms that I'm going to discuss are in a packet, and they're available to everybody in the lobby. And we have planning and building personnel to assist you with any questions afterwards and to discuss anything on these packets. In addition, all of our information is available online. If you don't have internet access, please come on down to the building department, and we will be more than happy to give you those documents. Or if you need to, you can call us, and we will mail you the information. So first and foremost, I have a brochure called Frequently Asked Questions Regarding Building Permits. And the information that you're going to need to submit to obtain a building permit for a residence or any structure are, first of all, a completed building permit application, 3 sets of plans, and the size of the plan sheets need to be 11 by 17 minimum. You'll need a copy of your plot plan on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. On your plot plan, show your proposed... Sure, I'll hold it closer. On your plot plan, please show where all structures are on your property and the dimensions to your property lines. Show your structures, your septic tank, and your leach lines as well. You will need CAL FIRE approval if you are in a state responsible area. Here in Redwood Valley, on the valley floor, it's mostly local authority from your local fire department. And so if you're not a CAL FIRE area, you'll need the local authority before you submit. You'll need their approval. If you're the CAL FIRE approval, please complete that CAL FIRE application, get it to them, and get the approval number back to us for the submittal. And again, everything is in the back that you need for the permit submittal. And I'd like to say that everything in the Redwood Valley burn area that's going to be rebuilt, we are doing expedited plan check review. They're getting bumped ahead of everybody else, and we're generally getting those out in 1 to 2 weeks. Once your building permit has gone through plan check and it's ready to issue, we will call you to come down and obtain your permit, and then you have permission to go ahead and start your project. Topic number 2 is grading in Redwood Valley, and that's a big issue. On January 5th, we sent out a letter to all residents affected by the fire and the grading in the area, and I'd just like to briefly, maybe some of you haven't seen this letter, but I'll just read just the first paragraph. Residents who have lost structures due to the fire within Mendocino County should be aware after the Army Corps of Engineers has cleared and cleaned their properties, a building grading permit is required to replace any type of fill material within the excavated area of the previous structure. The reason you need that is because there needs to be a compaction report to see that the soil is stable where you're going to put your new structure, because I think we're all aware of what could possibly happen. Now, if you decide to put your structure in a different area as the previous structure where there's undisturbed soil, then you will not need a grading permit for that. You simply go to 12 inches below undisturbed earth as with any other foundation. Now, with the grading permit, if you want to get busy right away and get working, you can take out a separate grading permit prior to the permit of your house, and that will allow you to get going. And I'd like to say that Department of Transportation is offering free fill. So when you're going through that grading process, have your design professional look at the fill that Department of Transportation is offering for free and see if that's suitable for your site. And if so, arrange it with DOT to have that delivered to your site. And grading was the second topic. The third topic I'd like to mention is there's an opportunity for you to have a power pole set for free in Redwood Valley. It's on a sliding scale. I'll let Tommy Moss Chandler talk about the sliding scale of the power pole. The power pole, obviously, is to set your meter main panel. And anytime you have a meter main panel where PG&E energizes that, you need to have a use. So in the past, we would always require that you have a permitted structure or you have a building permit that's been issued for that meter main power. But in Redwood Valley, in order for the residents to be able to obtain that power pole on a sliding scale, we will issue you a permit for $87 to go ahead and set the pole, set your meter main service, wire it in, but ask that you not call for an inspection until you're ready with your building permit for the structure. Now, if you're not going to be ready for a building permit for the structure, you can fill out a well-only agreement and get power to your well for water. And those are the three topics. I wanted to be brief because of the amount of speakers tonight. I want to tell you that all of our information is available online. We have personnel here to help you tonight with any questions. We are available all week by the phone. We have many people who can help you if you call or come on down and ask us or email us. And that's about it. I will be here to answer any questions also later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Tammy Moss Chandler from the county is here to pick up the next leg of this conversation. And at this point, I want to thank you. You're going to see me exit out this door. My staff is going to stay here, but my day tomorrow begins in Crescent City, so I need to start a long drive north. Please know that I'm going to continue to follow everything that's said through the end of this community meeting and stay engaged, but I leave you in the good hands of Tammy and Senator McGuire and everyone else. Thanks for being here tonight, folks.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate Congressman Hoffman being here for the afternoon in the Cayenne Campground groundbreaking, and certainly his advocacy on behalf of our community. I want to just remind you of a few local resources before we open for questions and answers. So if you do have questions, I just want to remind you to raise your hand because there are people walking through with the question cards. And we want to make sure we answer as many questions as possible while we have all the local, state, and federal partners here tonight. I just want to add to what Mike said, 2 points that we want to make sure you know about. For the temporary power pole project, it's actually $500 maximum, and it's actually on a very aggressive evaluation of your income level. So I know most of us don't talk federal poverty level, but basically if you are under 400% of the federal poverty level, you would get this contributed in kind. And so we really appreciate the Planning and Building Services Department working with fire survivors for this project that actually came out of what we're calling Mendocino Rock. Mendocino Rebuilding Our Community. And Mendocino Rock is actually the evolution of what you heard about back in December from the Survivor Resource Room that opened and the partnership of our local nonprofit, philanthropic, and faith-based communities. And so I know Megan Barbarayande is in the room. Megan, if you could just stand up. Megan's our current director of the Community Foundation of Mendocino County, and she's also the chairperson of Mendocino Rock for this collaborative effort. And she's chairing that group with Patty Bruder of NCO. North Coast Opportunities has been such a dedicated partner locally. And Redwood Valley MAC is represented by their chairperson and vice chairperson on Mendocino Rock. And certainly a large group of volunteers, faith-based leaders and nonprofit leaders volunteering their time. They've actually set up 8 committees, and those committees include a financing and fundraising committee, a committee really focused on how to address unmet needs. There's a construction and housing committee that's looking at volunteer construction materials. And the hub of that work is really case management. So as you connect with the resource room, so the Survivor Resource Room that's in the Ukiah Conference Center, you'll now see the flyers updated. They're in the foyer. If you've seen them before, it still says Resource Room, but it says Mendocino Rock. Mendocino Rebuilding Our Community Together. And so Mendocino Rock is continuing to provide these resources, and really these ideas have come from you. I had one of the best ideas this week came from a fire survivor going through their own process. Her name's Bree, I know she's in the room. And she had this amazing idea of material donations that came from her conversations with her contractor to rebuild, and how can they provide their donations if they have excess materials. And really this committee that's forming around donations and materials and construction and how to help bring together volunteers to help put in a power pole are really going to be able to use those resources. So it's about connecting up ideas like that with this committee and the right people on Mendocino Rock to really help the next person get what they need to rebuild and to have this opportunity. So it's this group of volunteers really volunteering on your behalf, trying to listen and hear your needs. And when they heard that temporary power poles were a barrier for some people to get back onto their property, that they really formed together to say how can they find the volunteers to do that and the materials at the lowest price possible. So we know usually that might take a few $1,000s to put in place, and now the most it would cost a fire survivor is $500. I'm really happy we have several of the case managers who really formed a team at Mendocino Rock are here tonight, and they're helping this evening, and there's flyers in the back for the resource room itself when you go out to the table in the foyer, to make sure that you have that information. And if you have friends or relatives, family members who aren't here tonight, please make sure you point them to the resource room to get connected to any array of services. You certainly can also connect with U.S. Army Corps and FEMA through that, but we're really grateful that we have FEMA individual assistance here tonight for people to get their individual needs met, and that we have U.S. Army Corps here tonight. So if you have individual, specific to your property or your personal needs, we really want to encourage you to connect with people who are here tonight. And certainly if you don't get to connect tonight, if you're watching online at home, you can go to the Survivor Resource Room and they can help connect you. Or you can go to the county website. When you go to mendocinocounty.org and you click on Fire Recovery Services, and you go to the services button, you'll find all of that information. If you click on debris removal, you'll find that phone number that Colonel McFadden talked about, 877-875-7681. And we really do need to have you speak up and share your concerns, particularly in debris removal. While we still have the U.S. Army Corps here, we want to make sure every concern is addressed and every need has been identified while we still have our partners here doing work. I want to just close by sharing the Building Expo that many of you have heard about that's been being planned by a group of local leaders. And we'll be fortunate to have our state and federal partners participating as well. But there's actually a large group of local partners who are putting together a rebuilding expo on Saturday, March 24th. Mike Oliphant will have his team from Planning and Building Services there. And certainly Nash Gonzalez, as our Planning and Building Services Director, has been really involved with Steve Dunicliffe and a large array of partners. And there's flyers in the back for that all-day event on Saturday. We're trying to make it as comprehensive as possible to answer everything from your insurance questions to vendors who might help you build in a more resilient way to ideas and strategies to help you do this in the most cost-effective and innovative ways as you look at the challenges that we have and the opportunities that might be provided through local, state, and federal partners. And with that, I'll turn it back to the Senator.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. Very grateful for all your work. So what we'd like to be able to do is we'd like to be able to open it up for questions. We have several questions that have come in. If everyone is comfortable, what we'd like to be able to have happen is that we're going to do a little bit of a lightning round, which will be kicked off by the Colonel. He's going to read the question and get right into it. And if this is your question, and if you didn't answer it all the way, feel free to be able to chime in and we can cover. So before we get to the Colonel, a few other thank yous. I neglected to be able to recognize Robert Pesafane from FEMA and Jody Travisero from the Office of Emergency Services. They have done phenomenal work as our leads on the ground here. Robert and Jody, thank you for all of your hard work. So I'd like to be able to call up both FEMA and the Army Corps to be able to come talk about debris. I'm going to also have Mr. Pesafane, who's been on the ground as well, and be able to come up here as well to be able to discuss all issues of debris. Then we're going to go to county planning and building, and then we're going to be going to the water district. And then if you have questions, just raise your hand. We have additional question cards right now. Colonel, lightning round, let's do it.
All right, amazing. I'll talk fast. Okay, so just a couple of things I want to talk about real quick before I read the question and answer. To have one of these events, we bring in a group of individuals, professionals with us here, and the goal is to capture your issue, make sure we give you the personal treatment that you deserve, and to be able to go out as required on site to be able to address the concerns. So my team of professionals is located out in the lobby out here. They have issue intake forms to make sure we can capture your contact information, capture the context of your issue, then follow up, especially in partnership with the county. And the other thing I want to say is some of these I'm going to refocus your attention to my professionals out in the lobby to address your issue. The other thing is one of the concerns that's kind of highlighted in some of these cards here was the appearance of over-excavation. And as you drive around and look at some of these parcels, anybody who drives by might say that it appears that there was over-excavation that occurred. We have dug into this and we looked at what were the pre-existing conditions that are below the houses. And in some cases, they are crawl spaces. So what that means is below your house, if you have a crawl space, anywhere from 12 to 24 inches below grade was where your grade was at below the house. So that meant when the house was on fire, your debris fell into below the house, already 12 to 24 inches down. Now what we have to do is we remove that debris, and then you have to go down another 3 to 6 inches to take your first soil sample. So to the unknowing eye, to any of us in the room, as we drive by, we might say, yes, that's over excavation. But that's one of the things that we observe. Now, I'm not going to discount any issue that you brought up here tonight. I would like to make sure that you ask one of our individuals out there to capture your issue so we can follow up on an individual basis. So with that, I'll do my best to read these very quickly. The first one's a rather lengthy one. When I was in the Army, we had a standard operating procedure for situations. I apologize. Does the Army Corps of Engineers not use this? Maybe it needs updating. It seems to be a recurring problem that dates back to New Orleans, that the award of contracts that pay by pound but do not police it or enforce penalties on abusers who get a big chuckle and the victims take a second hit. So I just want to say, with federal contracts, I think those of you who work with federal contracts can attest to this. Program management is conducted in accordance with the federal acquisition regulations. And what that means is we have a variety of different control measures in place that are dictated by federal law. And if we violate those, we violate the law. We currently have multiple audits ongoing to make sure that we are in compliance with that and we have the checks and control measures in place to ensure that we are executing properly. If there are contractors who have taken excessive amounts of material off the parcels, there are measures to follow up and either withhold payment or recoup payment from those contractors. And now I'm going to delve into the issues. I am going to ask you if you could make sure we capture your issue 101, the lobby. Is the Corps of Engineers going to replace 500 cubic yards of compactable dirt so we can rebuild? Two things I think we heard tonight is first, I'd like to capture the individual issue. Second, I think this county is unique in saying that DOT is providing free fill. And I think that's a great news story for Mendocino County. And I think in other meetings that we've been in, we've urged Sonoma and Napa to follow in the footsteps here. Next question is, why is the Army Corps of Engineers being held accountable for the excessive dirt they took? Two separate contractors told me that I need approximately 1,000 cubic yards, which equals 100 truckloads of dirt to get my 1 acre back to near level it was. Again, we'll capture the issue, we'll take a look at it. If there was excessive dirt removed.
Overzealous, we already looked at it. We said, yes, that overzealous is too bad. That's what I was told.
Okay, I'd like to follow up after this and have a further conversation. Next question is it true that there was extra soil taken from the site so it was done to profit the contractors? Again, if there's any indicator of that, and you do have indicators out in the communities, please let us know. There's a variety of different investigations ongoing, and there is different mechanisms to investigate any potential fraud, and we want to make sure we follow up on that. Next one's about soil. Who's going to replace the soil and dirt from the extreme digs? Very costly to the property owners. Again, I think it's fortunate that DOT is offering to free fill this, and I also want to capture that individually. And that completes my questions. I think I handed off to...
Thank you so much, Colonel. So the other piece I want to, Colonel's going to be hanging here to be able to answer questions. We have a core team here as well as going to be here to answer questions as well. And so the Corps will join folks right over here underneath the exit sign right after we conclude, so you can ask specific questions of the team as well. If it works for all of you, we'd like to be able to go to the County Planning and Building Department to be able to answer specific questions related to all issues of rebuilding homes. And then we'd like to be able to turn it over to the Water District. Is that okay with folks? And then we have just a couple of state questions as well. I'm going to turn it over to Planning and Building.
Thank you. This will be quick. First question, what is the possibility of splitting our lots into half-acre lots? Many of us on 1 acre parcels have 2 septics, 2 water hookups, 2 addresses. It's going to be hard enough just to build 1 house. That is a very specific planning question, and I'm not a planner, so I want to ask you to call 234-6650, ask for any planner, and they will guide you through the process of splitting your lot and if the zoning allows that. Next question, are the building permit costs going to be waived or reduced for this process? The permit costs will, if you choose, will be deferred until the final of your project. So you can go ahead, get the permit, build it, finish it, and right before you call for the final, the fee for the permit will be due at that time. And there are no school fees due on any of these projects. Looked online the other day for building regulations and the page was blank. Is there a hard copy of these? I keep being told to bring on our site plan and, in quotes, we can tell you then what you are able to do. First of all, if you're having a problem with the county's website, please call anybody in our office. We'll guide you through it. And yes, there is hard copies of everything that we have on site. And I think with the second part of this question about being told about the site plan, please be specific on what you want to build. If it's a residence, be specific with the plans on what the residence is going to entail. Next question, how will the recently released debris flow hazard risk zones affect the issuance of building permits? not too many of you are going to be affected by this. So I'd like to invite this person afterwards to meet me, and what I'd like to do is meet on Monday to go to our cartographer and look at our ArcGIS system if there's another place to place your structure on this lot, because the debris flow hazard area is subject to mudslides, and you're not allowed to put structures in there for obvious reasons. How many building permits have been issued so far? In the burn zone, we've issued 16 permits so far, and we probably right now have 12 more in the queue for plan check. How and when do we find out if our parcel is cleared officially for rebuilding? What you can do is call the Army Corps hotline at 877-875-7681. That's how you know if the Army Corps has cleared it. When the county has cleared it, we try to inspect that property within 24 hours of the Army Corps clearing it. We will then give you a call telling you that your parcel has been cleared and ready to go. Power pole. It was mentioned that an inspection should be asked for, or should not be asked for, until a building permit is issued, or a well-only permit. What about an RV to reside on the property, awaiting rebuilding replacement? This person is asking about the administrative permit that you can get to stay in your RV or trailer while you're waiting to build your property. And yes, that's fine. If you have an administrative permit to have your trailer there, you can get that permit for the power pole and meter service, and we will come out there and tag that meter so you can have power to your trailer. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're now going to turn it over to the Redwood Valley County Water District to be able to answer all questions. We have a few more that have been coming in. If you have any additional questions, you can just raise your hand right now. We're going to bring you the comment cards. We want to make sure that we do not leave here without having every question answered. And just a reminder, immediately adjourning this meeting, right underneath the exit sign, we're going to have the Army Corps of Engineers as well as the county to be able to meet with you for individual one-on-one questions. Tamara, the floor is yours, and the lightning round.
Will there be help replacing water system for those who are not part of the Redwood Valley water system? These are people who lost tanks and lines. So while the water district cannot assist you in replacing parts of your own personal water system, I would recommend that you take part in the individual assistance that FEMA is offering for you. And also that would be something that you would want to check with your homeowner's insurance on to replace. But the district cannot help you replace your own water system. Are there changes required to a standard water meter hookup having to do with new sprinkler systems? This is an important question because this is what we're talking about when we say that the smaller 3- and 4-inch main lines will have a difficult time providing the water pressure that you'll need when you rebuild and if you have a fire sprinkler requirement. So the answer to this question is yes, when you rebuild your home, you want to make sure that you have the water pressure through the right size water meter so that you can rebuild with fire sprinklers. And while you're working through your rebuilding process, we encourage you to keep in touch with the district so that we can answer your questions throughout the process. And what we don't want is for you to go through the process and then get to the end of your rebuilding your permit and then come in with questions and be so far along in the process that potentially we're not able to do everything that we can for you. So come talk to us early and feel free to come talk to us often as you're going through your process. With the lack of infrastructure regarding our water supply, is there a workaround for installing a private water supply system for the requirement of a sprinkler system? So what I would say to that is that there are ways that you could purchase tanks and have big tanks full of water that are ready there to deploy if your fire system goes off. I would say that that's possible if you have the lot the orientation to be able to do that, and you have the ability and interest to do that, you certainly may. We are going to continue to work with our partners to hopefully not have a situation where you have to do that, where we can have a system in place that allows you to rebuild and be accommodated for fire sprinklers. But there is a workaround, and I'm sure that in your permit process, if that's something that you're looking to do, that the county building and planning department will be able to help you with your design on that. And here, the last question is regarding Tom Kai and the existing infrastructure that's in Tom Kai. There have been issues with county maintenance of the Tom Kai Road, and if water lines are increased, does that apply to Tom Kai? What will happen to Tom Kai if a new line is put in? We have a line in Tom Kai Road that is...
When you tar up the road and you put it in to do a good job of sealing it off, that's the question.
So on Tom Kai Road, if we have to make infrastructure improvements in the road, we will diligently work to improve that road to make it much better than it was when we started. But I will say that throughout the years, the work that's done on Tom Kai, that's been done on Tom Kai in that area, was done by different entities over the years. There was a private water company in the Fisher Lake development that originally existed that had a main line in Tom Kai. That was one project. Then there's a district line in Tom Kai, and then of course there are many other utilities that run up and down that road that have been over the years maintained or replaced, or other work has been done on them that has compromised the road out there. So I will take this question as a, will the water district diligently work with its service team to replace roads in a good condition? And I will tell you, yes, we will. Thank you.
Is it okay to clarify my question from previous? I asked a question about will there be help for people with their own water systems, because Senator McGuire said that part of the reason you're able to be putting in all the new lines and everything is because there's been all these donations that are going towards that. Am I correct in that? Because then what about the people who have their own private lines? We don't pay for Redwood Valley Water, we pay for our own systems, and we don't have insurance that's not covered.
So right now, where we're focused is there are several different funds that we are working with to be able to cobble together the necessary $8 to $9 million to replace the 3-inch line strictly within the district, expand it to 6-inch, as well as replace the laterals that will take the water from the street and into the home.
We don't live right on the road or a line.
Okay, within the district. Okay, so that you would be covered under this. But why don't you, if you don't mind, hanging right afterwards, that's me. And then I'd like to go to get your address, and then we'll work with Tamara and the county on this one, if that's okay. And I don't mean to be pushy at all, or try to push off the question. I just want to get the specifics, and I promise you we'll meet. And then I'm also going to have Taylor give you one of her cards as well, so you have it. Please don't leave until we're done, if that's okay. We have a couple of additional questions that have come in, and we'd like to be able to address them. We have, first of all, the County Department of Transportation here on surveying. So we'd like to be able to bring up the County Department of Transportation. We also have a question in regards to the Mendocino County Disaster Fund and how funds have been spent. So first we're going to turn it over to the Department of Transportation, and then we're going to turn it over to Megan, who has just done such a phenomenal job. She's president of the Mendocino Community Foundation, and she'll be answering that question as well. But first, let's turn it over to the Department of Transportation.
So the question is, can the county survey the properties, plural, for Fisher Lake subdivision property line? And I'm assuming the question is, there's multiple lots or multiple lines that need resurvey. That is a job for a private surveyor. That's not something the county would normally do. However, if there's multiple lots and the owners of those lots got together and hired one surveyor, they could probably do that with less expense they could spread that cost over doing multiple parcels. That would be my recommendation for that.
Thank you. Megan, we'll turn it right over to you. It's nice to see you.
So my question is, I'm curious about the money raised for the victims of the Redwood Valley Fire. It seems not much has been given out. Unless you go to register with the caseworkers, okay, which is being given out on an as-needed basis. Why do we have to go through begging for money? So, I'll break this down a little bit. At this time, the Community Foundation's Disaster Fund has raised about $2.75 million. And that's for all of you. And I want you to know that, and we're really committed to making sure that money comes back and benefits all of you. As far as the money given out, because of Senator McGuire's good work with the Relief Fund in Sonoma County, that money was available for immediate assistance. And a lot of folks got $1,000 each from that money. We matched that money locally, so if you had a burnt structure, you should have gotten $2,000. So that money went out. Also, money went to the students in the school districts. So that was sort of in the immediate phase. Then we sort of moved into what we're calling more the recovery phase. And now we're working through these caseworkers, as this person noted. And our focus right now is meeting critical needs. And the way that I see it, it's like a roadblock to recovery. There's something in your way. For many people, it was the power poles. And that's why we got the strategy on how to find a way to get inexpensive power poles. Initially, we were hearing $3,600. We found the local organization, this volunteer organization, that helped put them in for $500. So that's an example of a critical need that is just blocking somebody's ability. There are others, and case management are hearing about them. So that's why we're working through those folks, because we want to make sure that we stretch this money as long and as far as we possibly can in the recovery process. Honestly, we could have put out $2 million in phase one. We could have. But there would have been nothing for the rebuild. So that's part of why we've been really strategic about how we're releasing money. To date, we've given out about $500,000 of what we've raised. So and a little of that has gone to some supporting of getting staff so that you have caseworkers to be there for you when you need them. So that's kind of where we are. We're sort of holding this final $2 million that we have to help with the rebuild. And we're looking at ways to stretch it and make it as equitable and as fair as possible to help those that are most vulnerable. It's not going to go to the folks that are well insured, because they don't need it. It's going to go to the folks that were under or uninsured, who need it to get back in a home, hopefully on their property if they want to go back to their property. That's sort of the goal, and we're trying to work together and use all these different resources. It will be the last money in. It's not going to be the first money in. So I hope that explains it to the person who had this question. I know it would sound great if we just cut it up and sent everybody a check, but then folks who didn't need it would get it, and somebody who needs more wouldn't get it. And as to the woman that asked the question about the water systems. So how that process will work out at the other end, case management will come anonymously and shares a case. And I'm just going to use yours if you don't mind. So her story is they have no resources to repair the water system. And they really can't live in this house that they were able to rebuild with no water, right? And so that story might come to the Unmet Needs Committee, and they would be presented with that story. She needs X amount of money to get these systems rebuilt on her property. And she's, considered important to us to help because she looks like she's a little bit older. I don't know how old she is, but let's just say that she's a little older. There's reasons that we would say, absolutely, this is important. We want to make sure that we help them. And so that's kind of how the process will happen, but that's down the road, obviously. But we're really hoping that we can help as many people as possible. Yeah.
My question is, who are you to say, or who is anyone doesn't have insurance and someone that does have insurance don't have basically the same needs. For instance, you don't have insurance, I have insurance, but I have to pay another $2,000 a month for a mortgage that I didn't have back in October. So how does that become equitable when you say those that have it won't get it and those that don't have it will get it?
It's not going to be cut to dry like that. And as I said, I just used the example of a well-insured person, which would be somebody whose insurance company is covering all their needs, that they're going to be fine. That's not who we're talking. That's a well-insured. Why case management's important? You know, why that's so important is they're going to weigh all those factors into the equation, that you have this extra cost that you didn't have before, and that would help them realize that you need help. And so they're going to factor all those things in, and so that's part of why they're using that process. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. Everyone who lost their homes needs funds. Insurance doesn't cover many things. How does one apply for funds? So just making sure you've connected to the Fire Resource Center and the case management team. I know they've been calling people. I think what I heard this morning, they're 68% through, meaning they have not called everybody yet. So if they haven't called you, be proactive and stop by the resource room. It's open Monday to Thursday, 10 to 2, so you can just walk in and you can connect with somebody and they're going to take you through a little check-in, I think, where they ask you a bunch of questions. So that's kind of how they will find out that you have needs that need to be met. So we're just trying to funnel everybody in through one entry point, and that's the entry point.
Thank you very much, Megan. I'll touch briefly on the North Bay Fire Relief Fund. It was a partnership in total with the Press Democrat as well as Redwood Credit Union in our office. $793,873 was donated to Mendocino County, and 100% of those dollars that came in were then invested in Mendocino County residents. Our guarantee was that 100% of every penny that came into the fund would be donated right back, as Redwood Credit Union covered all administrative and transaction fees. So 482 families received an initial allocation within 3 weeks of the fire breaking out and coming through our community. That was $379,500. 133 students in the county of Mendocino lost their home. Each received an immediate $500 to replace school supplies as well as school clothes. That equaled $66,500. Small businesses that employ 25 employees or less were eligible for a $5,000 grant to replace equipment and or a partial cost of a vehicle. $200,000 was dedicated and sent out with that. We partnered with the school district in December. Each one of those 133 students who lost a home due to the Redwood Complex fire received an additional $250 gift card. And each family also received a gift certificate to both Redwood Valley Market as well as Safeway in Ukiah to be able to cover the cost of their holiday meal as well. In addition, we worked with Humboldt County Toys for Tots and the Volunteer Center in Sonoma County. Each student walked away with a wheelbarrow full of toys, which was fantastic, and can I say thank you so much. And that equaled about $49,000 as well. We then also partnered with, and I just want to say thank you to NCO. NCO has been phenomenal throughout this entire disaster. And can I say thank you? Let's give them a round of applause. They came up with the idea of advancing a gift bag to every individual who lost a home. And we contributed an additional $30,000 to that campaign. And again, big thanks to Patty Bruder and her team for all of the work that they've done. And finally, about $18,300 is going to be donated to the Redwood Valley Calpella Fire Department to be able to replace all wildfire turnouts. And that is a partnership which we are very grateful to take part in as well. And I have a question here from Mary Beth. in regards to emergency alerts. And I also look to our director of OES, because I know this is an issue that he is focused on as well. But during the fire, I'm going to give you an example in Willits. There was almost 5 days where Willits didn't have cell, landline telephone, cable, or internet. But the only thing they had was radio. No, you're absolutely right. And what we have learned is the extreme vulnerability of our communication system, not just here in Mendocino County, but throughout the North Bay. 72 cell phone towers at the peak were down and not operating. And what we saw is there was a time where Sonoma County didn't have Comcast, cable and or internet. And the way emergency alerts were sent out, at times were inconsistent. I gotta say, Mendocino County did a good job with their emergency alert system, but what we also learned is we've never heard the EAS go off. And so here's what we're working on right now. It's a bill, it's a piece of legislation that's making its way through. It's called Senate Bill 833. It would create a statewide standard for emergency alerts throughout the state of California. We are living in a new reality. The worst wildland fires that we've had in this state have happened in the last 5 years. And candidly, it's not getting any better. So what this bill would do is that there would be a standard set of protocols and procedures in every one of the 58 counties when it comes to training, when it comes to deploying, and that any time that there is a major natural disaster or a man-made disaster, alerts would be sent out via cell phone, landline, radio, television, as well as on all state highway electronic billboards. Very similar to what we already have right now with Amber Alert. It's a system that works, and we have to be able to move that forward on our emergency alert system as well. And every county needs to have the same set of standards. I don't know if the director would like to be able to say anything on this. All right, and I think the director and I are getting together to talk next week on this as well. So I know he's really excited. And I don't know what finger that was, but thanks so much, Mr. Director. I think that we had a few additional cards come in. Did I see any additional cards come in? Please.
Could I make an announcement, please?
Sure.
The Mendocino Ham Radio Group, McArts, is providing a ham radio training course. And if you're interested, you can come see me. I'm very removed the Red Cross. But the ham radios are very portable. You can just keep the unit in your car or in your house or take it with you. But they're also installing a solar-powered repeater station up on McLaughlin Peak. So that'll improve our communications in the future. But I want to also thank them for all the work they did up in Willits with the ham radios and manning the hospitals and things like that.
I think we need to give a round of applause for ham radio operators. Thank you so much. Very grateful. Thank you, and thank you for that announcement as well. We'd like to be able to turn it over to Superintendent Kubin here to be able to answer a question, and then turn it back over to Tammy Moss-Chandler with the County of Mendocino with a question as well. Superintendent.
The question is, what is the status of using the Redwood Valley Elementary School as future housing? Our school board is very interested in considering that proposal, and we have declared Redwood Valley Elementary a surplus property, and so we are in the process of exploring that option of converting the school into housing. There have been some great projects across the nation in converting schools into housing and community centers, and so we are exploring that now, and we'll likely send out a request for proposals to developers to see if there's any interest in doing that.
Thank you, Deb. So a couple of other questions that have come in. One is, please remind people that they may need to update their voter registrations if they've had a change of residence or mailing address. So not a question, but an important announcement that you can phone in your updates to the Registrar of Voters. Another question came in that was very similar to the question Senator McGuire just answered around redundancies and reliability of communications. And certainly the Redwood Valley MAC has just sent a letter of support on behalf of the community about SB 833 and the Senator's bill that's moving through the system right now for that. The same person asked, also, Brook Trails has a large population with one access route. We need a second access route for safety. What can be done to make this happen? And certainly secondary access routes and ingress and egress concerns for several of our rural areas are a big topic that we're looking at for our county and regionally with our regional partners to explore planning and development of secondary access routes for future resiliency. We don't have a solution, it's not an easy solution, but we certainly have the Brook Trails as well as other areas of the county in mind with that research. Another question that came up is, will there be advisors or counseling for wildfire victims struggling with their insurance company's evaluation versus what a contractor would have to charge for the itemized estimate to rebuild? And there will be representatives from the California Department of Insurance at that expo in March, but you don't have to wait till then. We strongly encourage you to call California Department of Insurance. They are responding daily to calls around insurance questions. You can get to that site as well really quickly through the county's fire recovery site. If you go to services, and at the bottom it says state resources, and you click on that button, you'll get to the information. The second line down is the California Department of Insurance. So certainly call them, and also please work with our local care coordinators who are through the resource room. We're trying to get more information and connections for people as well around insurance supports. Another question, my property has minor damage. Are we able to begin removal of burned trees, bushes, and other objects left behind? And so, number one, I think if this is a U.S. Army Corps public cleanup program, we really want to talk to U.S. Army Corps today to see where you are in the removal process. Because certainly on your property, you can do some of this work no matter where you are in the process, depending on how close it is to the materials that U.S. Army Corps would clean up. So you just really want to make sure that's coordinated. And if you're not part of the public process, then really you could be moving forward. And we have environmental health here, and myself, we could connect with you afterwards and answer your question more specifically. Just a couple more questions that came in, and then I have one I can't answer that Steve Dunicliffe is going to answer. Okay. So please clarify whether or not we can use our insurance debris money to clean up our sites after the county has sent a letter notifying us that the U.S. Army Corps is finished with their cleanup. Yes, 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 you can use your own insurance to remove any remaining debris that U.S. Army Corps did not clean up. And we've worked really closely with FEMA and Cal OES to make that really clear in their FAQs. So please, we want you to use your insurance money to clean up anything that didn't qualify. And if you have any question if something was left that you think should have qualified, please talk to U.S. Army Corps, and we'll make that connection even tonight to make sure that it wasn't left behind on accident. Is there any outreach program for the Hispanic community in Redwood Valley? And we actually have a very talented bilingual bicultural case manager who's in the connected to the Survivor Resource Room through Mendocino Rock. This suggested maybe working with the local Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church has been a good partner through the local assistance center and did some early outreach back in October. And certainly we have connections there, but we also have that service directly through the resource room. Will my home be covered by fire insurance if I have the sprinklers and the 1-inch line installed, but the Redwood Valley water won't be ready for a year or two? So this is similar, I think, to the other concerns that please talk to us individually, but what we want you to know is that FEMA, Cal OES, and through the Senator's advocacy, we're working to expedite funding, and the water district process is our #1 priority right now, along with other individual needs that we're addressing, but our big project. So we hope it won't take a year or two. We actually are planning to work as quickly as we can. And final question I have here, are there any efforts being made to get PG&E to underground their lines, or at the very least, to improve their tree and vegetation trimming in the vicinity of their lines? So the County of Mendocino, along with our regional partners, has had several conversations with PG&E and certainly underground lines has come up. We know it's costly, but regionally it is being discussed. And certainly they actually have a program around tree and vegetation management, and we encourage you to let us know if you have a particular property that you're concerned about. And certainly there'll continue to be dialogue about what PG&E needs and can do to help fire survivors in the future. With that, I'll turn it to Steve. Okay.
Thank you. This question is, do they have to close our entire campground for summer use, being as they are putting people to live in the area if only 29 sites are being used, so that the rest of the campground will be open for the summer? So when FEMA and Army Corps were negotiating the agreement on the county's behalf for this, it wasn't clear at that time how many spaces would be needed. There was a significant concern over potential conflicts if survivors are living in an area where they have recreational campers right next to them for the weekend and on a revolving basis. So the Cayenne campground is reserved for the fire survivors. There are other day use areas on the north side of the lake, and it's also important to remember that the Boucher campground on the east side of the lake has over 100 camping spaces that are available. And there's also the recreation area at the south end of the lake, the Chicaka area, that has even more campsites that have been closed for a number of years. But if there's additional pressure and need for spaces, it's a possibility that the Army Corps would have those two open if needed. So the entire Cayenne campground is reserved for survivors, but there are many spaces left for people to recreationally use the lake.
Thank you, Mr. Dunklin. So we'd like to do a quick time check. We're currently at about 8:20. What we'd like to be able to do is we'd like to open up questions on an individual basis, one-on-one with each of the agencies who are here. So we know that we have some one-on-one questions from the Army Corps of Engineers, but we're going to be meeting right over here with the Army Corps. We're also going to have the county available for you to be able to meet one-on-one as well. And then we will also make sure we'll have OES, Office of Emergency Services, as well as FEMA representatives, all right here in the back of the room. We'll start staging right now to be able to answer your individual questions home by home. In FEMA, oh, I apologize. FEMA is where the large signs are, and I should have seen that. Thank you so much, Mr. Administrator. I apologize. Hot day. There's a few thank yous, though, before we adjourn. I want to say thank you to Congressman Huffman for his incredible work and for co-hosting tonight. He is phenomenal to be able to work with. I'd like to be able to say thank you to the County of Mendocino, and of course, our Chairman Hamburg, as well as Supervisor Cowan, who is here, and Supervisor Brown. Hated to miss tonight, but she had a conflict, as we heard earlier. Just want to say thank you to those three and the entire board for all their work and for their partnership, and of course, to the County Administrator in her office. I want to say thank you to the Office of Emergency Services and our director who is here tonight, who came in especially for this meeting, along with our administrator from FEMA, who flew all the way from Guam to be here this evening. So we say thank you very much. And then, of course, to the Army Corps and the engineers. The Colonel is going to be giving out his cell phone tonight, he told me. Is that right, Colonel? Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go. Nice. No, but truly, we want to answer any questions that you have, because I know as hard as they work, this has been a complicated and at times frustrating experience. We want to be able to answer those questions. The final thank yous I'd like to be able to recognize. We have Jenny Calloway here tonight, who is the district director for Congressman Huffman. Just want to say thank you to Jenny. She's been phenomenal to work with all throughout. And a few other thank yous. Taylor Morrison from our office here in Mendocino County is somewhere in right over here in the maroon. Taylor, hi. Thank you for all of your work. If any questions that you have, please contact Taylor or contact us directly. I want to say thank you to Danielle Bradley, Carrie Flindecker, as well as Rebecca Washburn from our office as well for all your work this evening. We'd like to be able to turn it over to Supervisor Hamburg. We'd be able to say a few closing comments, and then we'd like to be able to end it with the superintendent of schools. But again, Supervisor, thank you for having us tonight.
And, I don't really have anything to add except to thank Senator McGuire. I mean, a lot of people have talked about the contributions that Senator McGuire is making. And, one of them is to come up here and organize this kind of a meeting and get everybody on board and get a lot of questions asked. So I just really appreciate all the effort Mike has put in. I think you've heard about some of our county partners. Carmel's been mentioned. She's been doing a fabulous job. And Tammy Moss Chandler, Steve Donacliffe, just so many people who have worked on this. And mostly, though, this is not about the people sitting up here. It's about you. It's about getting your questions answered. It's about figuring out how government on all levels can best serve you in a time when you are really needing some help. And that's what we're here for. That's what the Board of Supervisors is here for. That's what your state and federal legislators are here for. So I hope people will stick around after this meeting, get your particular questions answered, and let us serve you in the way that, that helps you the most. So again, thank you very much, Mike, and thanks everybody for being here and for answering questions.
Yep. Thank you. Great job. Thank you so much. Superintendent, if you want to come forward, closing comments.
I'm actually going to quote Senator McGuire. He was here in this room about a month ago talking to the 8th graders of Eagle Peak Middle School, and he had 3 things to say. Well, he said multiple things, and he made them dance, which was fun to make 8th graders dance. But he said 3 things to them. 1 is to work hard, 1 is to work together, and the 3rd is to not take no for an answer. And my heart goes out to all of you and what you've been through. And working together, we're here for you as a school, we're here for the kids, and whatever we can do to support you, we are here. So on that, I will.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you so much for allowing us to be with you this evening, and we'll end it with a promise. This is just the start. And we are going to be with you every step of the way. We'd like to be able to bring the community back together, if it works for you, to be able to do a status update. Because we want to be accountable to you in regards to the rebuild and the recovery. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here with you tonight. And again, we look forward to working with you in this difficult and challenging time in the months and years to come. Thank you so much. So a reminder, we have folks who are in the back, Army Corps engineers. The Army Corps is slumming it. They cannot bring their own signs like FEMA did. So if you just go over here to the left of FEMA, County is going to be in the back of the room as well. County is going to be in the back of the room.
That's a good first step.